Many masters said to not teach true spiritual knowledge to poor people. Does it mean they were discriminative? No. Many of them chose one or two students in their lifetimes out of people who weren't wealthy, but those people were internally eligible for spiritual knowledge because they were content, because they were pure, because they were spiritually more mature, and they were able to manage their life even if they were materially not very wealthy. So true poverty means, as I already mentioned it once in one video, it truly means that one is internally poor and discontent. Internal poverty and external poverty as a result of internal poverty arises out of inability to manage oneself. If one has problems on any levels, it means overall imbalance in their being. And imbalance in their being means that what they cannot have a foundation, or they do not have proper foundation for that true spiritual knowledge to arise within. And as long as they do not realign all the levels of their being into one equanimous being, they are not eligible for true knowledge. Either they need first help to realign their being in order to perceive self as an equanimous being, and then with time they start refining themselves more and more, deeper and deeper, and their situation, material situation, emotional situation, mental situation improves. And then only they are able to become eligible for that spiritual knowledge. Without this groundwork, there is no way that one can or will actually receive any true knowledge. Neither can one receive true knowledge when they have a lot of money, because that makes them feel as if they're entitled. And so they think that they can buy a ticket to heaven. But true knowledge cannot be bought, because one needs to have the internal foundation. All these words, foundation, all these different symbolic knowledge, which is kind of covered by different words, is immaterial. All these notions are subtle. One needs to have this subtle foundation, which means equanimity and contentment, in order to be eligible for the true knowledge to sprout out. One needs to be selfless and pure, and have enough humility and enough understanding of what is what in order to be eligible. One needs to respect self, and one can never choose teachings or teachers, because it is only teachers that choose the students, because they see whether the vessel is able to contain that or not. The majority of people are consumers. The majority of people are ambitious fools, and some few people are followers of the truth, which are very rare. And very, very, very few people are actual students of life, because very rare people have inner confidence, healthy confidence, and yet deep humility, selflessness, and purity, which are the prerequisites for the true knowledge and true teaching. And very, very few people are able to actually remain in contentment and equanimity for some time, which is the most important point. Because if one is not able to unload, to let go, to step out of the previous, of the past, dissolve the past, and remain within self, one is not eligible for true spiritual knowledge. And everyone is parroting, remain in now, cultivate now, present moment. It's impossible for anyone to practice anything if they are not able to perceive the natural being. And their natural being is just their contentment. The natural being means they're able to be content and to be equanimous and absorbed at any point of time. They can just let go and go within and perceive the blissful equanimous being. If they're not able to do that, it means they don't know of anything. You have to experience yoga first, and that is the absorption. The amanaska state, or the mindless. Mindless meaning that mind which spins, which clings, which goes outwards. The mind, logical, the judgmental mind. But the true mind is not that. The true mind is just there, continuously aware of self. So these are the judgmental nature and all the other things which come along with it, emotions and thoughts. These are impurities. And if you want to say that this is your normal state of mind, well then you have to understand what is the actual being and natural state of mind, rather than pursuing the ambitions of the spinning mind or that which is impure mind. By sitting with eyes closed, with legs crossed, or stretching in different postures, is not going to do anything. True purity is subtle. True contentment is subtle. True being is subtle. True treasure, true value is subtle. No diamonds, no gold, no money can buy it. And once one perceives it, one cannot be bought. One cannot sell. One doesn't need anything of the world because one has realized the illusion. So one bathes in one's own being, unconditional being. So if someone comes across that being, they will not realize that that being is bathing, or they might not recognize it because they do not resonate with that. They do not resonate with the true knowledge. How anyone can recognize true knowledge if they do not have that truth and purity within themselves? People recognize that which is within them. So if there is still some falsehood, they will be attracted to false knowledge, because that falsehood has to be expressed outwards. That falsehood has to be manifested. And so they will be drawn to that which will help that falsehood to manifest outwards. If there is corruption, they will be attracted to the corrupt knowledge so that that corruption will be manifested and they will learn about it. Some people learn, very few learn. The majority get tangled or they get traumatized with certain experiences, failures and negative experiences, because they cannot understand that all the roots and reasons are within, because they're not able or ready to face themselves. And here is the corruption. First of all, inability to face self, inability to actually truthfully look at oneself and say that that actually comes from myself. And through life experience, through people, through facing self and clashing with other people, clashing with whatever is there that disturbs you, that creates imbalance, helps you to understand the inner corruption, falsehood, or whatever else is there that is manifested. So how can one recognize true teaching if one is polluted and corrupt within? One cannot. And that's why the true teaching conceals itself. True knowledge conceals itself and preserves itself, and no one is able to access it. As long as they are not able to recognize their own purity and cultivate, and at least dissolve some gross emotional impurities in order to most of the time remain content and still. If stillness and contentment are not there as foundation, there can't be true refinement. And also true refinement means that one does not escape from the world. One is embracing the world of the self, because that world will be manifesting through others. And if one is trying to avoid this manifestation, sooner or later this will blast in their faces anyways. So this is the way to understand how we create our own illusions, our own corrupt spirituality, because we propel that which we resonate with. And we do not resonate with purity, we resonate with corruption. And even if we resonate with purity, we do not understand it because it's not there. We want it, but we don't know what that is. Purity is clarity. Everything is crystal clear. And when everything is crystal clear, it means all that perversion, corruption, pollution is crystal clear for you. And you're seeing it, you're facing it as the palm of your hand. And maybe you don't want to face it because it's too atrocious. That's where the cookie crumbles and there is no further progress, because one is not able to understand all the sides of the wholesome being. One wants to pick. I want a cake and I want a biscuit and I want a milk. So you start picking out things that you like and leaving all that which you don't like. But the reality means, or embracing the reality means understanding, perceiving, embracing everything that that reality gives you. And that is the reality of yourself, of you. You are facing your own self, and within you, there is not only good. There is actually very little good, and there is mostly corruption. And sometimes you think that corruption is good. Well, then you start nurturing that corruption because you think it's good. So it's very dangerous to divide life into good and bad, because your notion of good and bad is corrupt and limited, and you don't know really what is good and bad. Actually, nothing is good or bad. Everything is neutral. Everything is the experience, because only through experience you are able to perceive something that is within, because that manifests. And if you feel pain, you call it bad. If you feel pleasure, you call it good. And so you start pursuing, like a dog, like an animal, all that which gives you pleasure, and neglecting all that which is accumulating, which is causing you pain. Yet that pain, that which is causing pain, does not go anywhere. It's just growing because you're neglecting it. And so it tries to manifest itself more and more, and you're again sweeping it under the rug. And so it piles up, and one day it just unleashes. And everyone has these timings. And astrologically speaking, people say, oh, when the Saturn period comes, or any kind of period comes, everything bad unfolds. Well, it unfolds because you haven't been acknowledging it during your previous periods. Because if you live consciously, you do not pursue neither good nor bad. You just pursue contentment. You pursue equanimity, equanimous being. You are not a junkie of good or a neglector of bad. You don't even divide reality into such notions. Because these already, the desire to divide reality, to split it into good and bad or into anything else, is already a corruption within. Because there is nothing as good or bad. There are different experiences that our individual consciousness interprets and divides into this or that. The reality is neutral and has no meaning. The being has no meaning, has no ambition. The divinity has no meaning or ambition. It doesn't want to help anybody, as many people falsely think. True reality is always there. It is there. And either we realize it with time or we don't realize it. Period. There's nothing more to add. And people who want to create spiritual stories or a meaning, spiritual meaning in their life are fools. And this is the majority. You want to have a meaning for your life. You want to help people. You want to heal everyone. Well, why don't you heal yourself? If you succeed, then it means that you will have such an emanation that will naturally, spontaneously heal everyone else. Without words, without tagging yourself and walking with that tag. I'm a chef, I'm a cleaner, I'm a worker, I'm a healer, and I'm a teacher, right? So this is delusion, man-made reality. If anything looks like that, it is a delusion. Because if you look at the core, no one can teach you, no one can heal you. You can live life. And to live life is very difficult for the majority of people because they don't live life, they suffer life. And they try to escape from suffering. And they try to propel false illusions and feeling of good. And that's why the society is engulfed by entertainment industry, by all forms of entertainment, self-forgetfulness, promotion of drugs, alcohol, and not only promotion, but abuse, mass abuse of drugs, legal, illegal, all kinds of, because we're not able to heal ourselves. What does it mean to heal ourselves? Means to reconnect with our being. And when you reconnect with your being, it means your mind, consciousness dwells within, so you are able to be aware of all the processes of your body. You are able to make wise choices. If you are dragged by desires and ambitions, you're not able to make wise choices. That's why you suffer poverty or lack, because desires are too many to satisfy and the means are too less. Poverty comes from mismanagement, from a feeling of discontentment, from a feeling that I want more than I can or than I even need. But there's no feeling that I have enough or I need less, because if you don't need that much, you will never be in poverty. But poverty is self-imposed. Sometimes poverty can be temporary and circumstantial, which is all right. It's a certain experience. But if poverty is throughout life and one feels continuously discontent and lacking, it is lack of internal connection and deep foundation. And if one thinks that because one doesn't have and one is spiritual because one doesn't have, or one doesn't have because one chooses spirituality, it is again another notion, nonsense and illusion story. Because when people are spiritually evolved, they never lack anything because they can produce anything within themselves and out of themselves. Because the truth is, money is intelligence. If one is intelligent, one never lacks because one doesn't need much, because one is content. Intelligence is not the amount of books you read or amount of books you wrote, or because people say you're intelligent because you just were able to buy a couple of sports cars or properties. Now that is not intelligence. That's just a circumstance. But the true richness comes from contentment, equanimity, that should result in spiritual evolution, which means an evolution of intelligence. and evolution of that intelligence in the body, in the healthy body. That is true wealth and true richness, which cannot be bought. And if that is not there, then what spirituality are we talking about? If people are spiritually evolved, they will not lack anything, nor they will much suffer. They might have challenges, but they don't call them suffering, because they embrace the challenges as a part of being in this man-made reality at this point of time, because this is not any divine age. It is just an age of illusion, and being here is already a challenge, let alone having everything smooth and perfect. No one has anything smooth and perfect. But some people embrace and live through whatever is given to them, and they never complain or feel like they suffer. They learn and become stronger and evolve further and become more and more content. And others become more and more victimized through experience and propel that victimization and want to excuse themselves and create more and more illusions within their own life or tangle with the experiences. So the choice is always ours. The choice is within the individual consciousness, and then on the collective level, within the collective consciousness, or whatever the choices are made by the majority will define the collective choice as well. But after all, only oneself can free oneself from the illusion, because that which binds liberates, as I've written also in the book. Because that which seems to be challenging, of the nature of suffering, of the nature of pain, etc., even of the nature of pleasure, all that is binding us. And whatever binds us indicates the path or the way to liberation. Because we understand how consciousness got tangled with this or that experience, how it interpreted the experience, and how it can let go of that entanglement. If you cannot acknowledge and identify the reason of bondage, and this bondage doesn't mean only suffering, it's mostly the good things in life that are of a most binding kind of nature. Because whatever is gluing us mostly to it is of the most dangerous nature. It's the biggest bondage. Because suffering propels spiritual evolution. Suffering lets us understand that maybe we misinterpret life, maybe we create stories, maybe we have something within that is not allowing us to be content. But pleasure binds the most. That's why addictions are so hard to cure. Addictions to self-gratification, to fame, to a lot of money, to easy money, to good life in general, to any kind of indulgence is very difficult to refine and dissolve, because the attachment is much stronger. We don't get attached to pain so easily, but we get much more attached to pleasure, much more attached to a notion of hope, a notion of meaning. And that's why everyone plays us around, because they give us just an extra hope to keep us going, to keep stripping us of the money, to keep deluding us more. Because all people need and want is hope, is pleasure, and they constantly look forward to it. Good luck, happiness. These are illusions because they don't even exist. Even when you are, let's say you're having a nice party, you're having drugs, are you really enjoying? No, it's a false idea of enjoyment, because after that you'll suffer. Your body will suffer, pains, withdrawal symptoms, and so on and so forth. Your ears will suffer, because it's not pleasure, it's overstimulation, but it is conveyed on a plate of pleasure. It is conveyed as a pleasure. And that's why many people buy into it. And they think, oh, this is what life should be. This is the happiness. Sexual indulgence, sexual perversion. All of these arise from absolute discontent. And when these are there, what true spirituality we're talking about? First, we need to withdraw the mind from these bondages. Then the mind starts dwelling within itself in a natural way. Then you discover natural mind. Without having discovered natural mind, you are not able to perceive contentment, because contentment comes from the mind dwelling in its natural being, its natural way, it's in itself. And without that experience within the physical form and on a subtler level, like altogether realigned, that is yoga, the first experience of yoga. Without that, one is not able to ever see what is of illusionary nature, of transitory nature. And even after that, it doesn't mean that one has achieved anything, because that is just a glimpse. But one needs to return back to self. That's where the teaching, the external teaching, the external Siddha teaching is about returning back to self, to the natural being. All the Siddha teachings are about this coming back to the self, to the natural being. What does it mean, coming back to self? It means coming back to the natural mind. It means dwelling, being able to dwell and perceive whatever you have there externally through that natural being. And then because you're able to perceive it through the natural being, you are able to see the essence. And the essence is nothing, empty. It's temporary. And that's why the mind learns this way, that no matter what experience is, what pleasure or pain is, all is temporary, all is transitory. And that's how the mind starts more and more withdrawing from the man-made illusion and starts living and perceiving more subtler aspects of the self and cultivating the subtler experience of the self. And so it evolves further. This is the way to go. Thank you.